hello, friends, and welcome to the Imago Nutrition Podcast, where we answer your questions and give you practical nutrition strategies to help you and your family flourish. My name is Mark Glesney. I will be your host today. If it's your first time listening, welcome to Imago Nutrition. I often have my co-host and business partner and registered dietitian extraordinaire, Danielle Glesney, on with me, but today you are stuck with just me. I'm flying solo. But I am excited and encouraged by the opportunity to get to help some folks. And so if you are someone that has an underactive thyroid and you've been clinically diagnosed perhaps with hypothyroidism, or you suspect you have an underactive thyroid and have struggled to lose weight, I am praying and working toward this episode being incredibly encouraging to you, as well as helpful in your health journey. And so we love to hear from listeners. If you have a health question, if you have a nutrition question, heck, even a fitness question, we would love to hear from you. You can submit your questions to us by going to imagonutrition.com. That is IMAGO nutrition.com/podcast. There is a form there that you can fill out and send us your burning health, nutrition, fitness question, and we would love to consider that for a topic of a possible future episode. And so with that, as I alluded to, today's question is a good one, and it is, how do I lose weight with an underactive thyroid? And so I'm going to break this into a couple different parts. I'm going to try to make it very digestible. We're going to talk a little bit about what the thyroid is, what it does, what hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid means. I'm going to talk briefly about a new study that has come out that has shed some light into this arena, some encouraging light, some good news on the nutrition science front about underactive thyroid and what that means. And then very practically, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to losing weight if you have an underactive thyroid. And so stick with me as I do a little bit of prep work here. We are going to get to a very practical step-by-step plan. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Would love to help clarify or individualize anything that you hear today or that I discuss in the episode. And so let's begin with the basics real quick. What is a thyroid? Now, chances are if you have an underactive thyroid or have heard hypothyroidism in discussions with perhaps your doctor, you likely already know this, you may have looked it up, but wanted to do just some foundation setting. And so, of course, the thyroid is this butterfly-shaped gland. It's at the front of the neck, just below the Adam's apple, if you will, on either side of the windpipe. It's part of the endocrine system, and so it produces hormones that regulate a variety of functions in the body, including metabolic rate, or what we'll call resting metabolic rate, heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a regulatory gland and producer of hormones. And so speaking of the hormones, it makes two main hormones, T3 and T4. These hormones effectually affect every cell in the body, very, very integral into how our body operates. They support the rate at which the body can use fats, carbohydrates, etc. But these are very powerful hormones. And so when we have an underactive thyroid, some of those hormones are in play in terms of their output or their levels. Okay. And so if you have an underactive thyroid, this is when the gland isn't making enough of those thyroid hormones to meet your body's needs. Okay, sort of your normative needs, all right, or healthy needs. I looked up prevalence. It looks like about 5% of Americans, so this podcast is based in America, about 5%, 5 out of every 100 Americans aged 12 and up have hypothyroidism, not to be confused with hyperthyroidism. Although most cases, they would say, are mild or have few very obvious symptoms. And a lot of times hypothyroidism is wrapped up into other diagnoses like Hashimoto's, et cetera. And so sometimes what you're feeling the effects of is multiple conditions or diagnoses. But according to the literature, about 5 out of every 100 Americans over the age of 12 has this, though, again, they say that most cases are mild, at least isolated, and have very few obvious symptoms. Okay. However, symptoms exist. We have to deal with that. This is the experience of many. And so keep in mind, 5% of American is still a large number. And so some symptoms include fatigue. We're going to talk a little bit about that one. I think that one is perhaps the most prevalent, the most felt, the most realized symptom. Weight gain, we're going to certainly talk about that. Trouble tolerating illnesses like even the common cold. You can have joint and muscle pain. Dry skin, dry thinning hair is also associated with underactive thyroid. Heavy or irregular menstrual periods, or fertility problems. Perhaps a slower heart rate, even things as serious as depression. And so all of these are very real. They're very experienced in this world. And I wanted to kind of key in on a few of these. Of course, the topic is about weight loss. And so it is associated, an underactive thyroid is associated with weight gain. Okay. It has pretty much long been believed that folks with an underactive thyroid have a significantly slower metabolism. And so we've got a new study on this that I want to talk about briefly on that point, because we're obviously moving into the topic of weight loss with an underactive thyroid. And there was a fascinating new case control study that came out recently, and I will give you the PMID here real quick if you want to look it up. Don't take my word for it. Go read the study yourself. The PMID, which you can Google to pull up the literature, is 38777,475. Okay, so if you Google, if you've never done this before, you can open up Google and put in the letters PMID, and then the numbers 38777,475. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up a study. You're going to see that the title of this study is "Are Resting Metabolic Rate and Clinical Symptoms Affected by Variation of Serum Thyroid Stimulating Hormone Levels Within the Normal Range in Healthy and Women with Hypothyroidism?" Okay, so this is a case control study, which, if we had to rank scientific evidence on a scale of 1 to 7, 7 being the most trustworthy, this would be about a 4. A case control study would be about a 4. So it's in the upper half of what we would consider scientific evidence. And if you're curious about how I have those parameters, let me know. I'm happy to clarify that. That's a topic for a different episode. But this is a case control study. I look forward to the day that we have either a systematic review or a meta-analysis of studies like this on this topic. As of now, though, we do have a new case control study. I looked at 160 overweight/obese women with a varying range of thyroid stimulating hormone levels. All right. So the subjects of these 160, they were paired into 4 groups: healthy subjects with low normal targets, healthy subjects with high normal targets, subjects that were treated for hypothyroidism with low normal targets, and subjects with treated hypothyroidism with high normal targets. Okay. So they had a kind of a quadrant system based off levels of thyroid activity. But essentially, just think of it as high and low with 2 maybe rungs in between. And what they were taking a look at was resting energy expenditure, okay, which is your REE. We'll talk about that in a second. Resting any energy expenditure, dietary intake, body composition, physical activity, biochemical markers. All of these were being assessed in this case control study. But all that said and done, let me summarize it for you. The findings were this. The findings were that the difference between high and low thyroid level groups was about 100 calories. Okay. I'll explain what that means real quick. Okay. So the people that were the women that had high thyroid hormones levels, right, and low thyroid hormone levels, the difference in the amount of calories they burned on average per day was about 100 calories. Okay. Now, that may seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things. It's fairly small. though not entirely insignificant. However, it is relatively small. To give you two examples, 100 calories is roughly 13 almonds. If that helps you kind of picture it. 100 calories is less than a medium banana. It's like 4/5 of a medium banana. I think a medium banana is like 105 calories. Okay. So we're talking about the difference in calories burned by someone with high level of thyroid hormones and someone with very low levels of thyroid hormones is about 100 calories a day. Not entirely insignificant, however, statistically relatively small. Okay. So the conclusion per the study was this, and I quote: variation in serum TSH, that's thyroid serum hormones, okay, TSC levels within the relevant range did not significantly affect REE, that's that resting energy expenditure. We'll talk about that in a second. And clinical symptoms, except fatigue, important, real, in healthy and women with hypothyroidism. Let me state that again because I kind of got off course as I was stating it. Quote, variation in serum TSH levels within the reference range did not significantly affect REE and clinical symptoms except fatigue in healthy and women with hypothyroidism. Okay. Now, I want to postulate that this is good news. Okay. This is a bit of a theme that I'm bringing to my language as I speak about various nutrition topics, is bringing the good news of nutrition science. And I do believe that this is good news. Okay. Real briefly is because I believe this puts women, perhaps you, if you're experiencing a low activity thyroid or an underactive thyroid, this continues to keep you in the driver's seat of commanding your health outcomes moving forward. Okay. As I said, 100-calorie difference between high and low levels of thyroid hormone is not entirely insignificant, but it's relatively insignificant. It's very relatively small. We're going to talk about that. Okay. So I believe this is good news. I want you to be encouraged and hopeful about this, that you do not face, if you have an underactive thyroid, you do not face a massive gap between someone that does not have that condition and someone that does. There is not a massive gap in terms of your metabolic rate. Okay. So I referenced this, speaking of metabolic rate, referenced this term REE. Okay. So let's talk about what this is real quick. Again, we're foundation setting. I'm going to get to a very practical plan here in a second. What is REE, or resting energy expenditure? You may have also heard the term BMR, which is basal metabolic rate, or RMR, which is resting metabolic rate. They are essentially the exact same thing. And the simplest way to define this is your resting energy expenditure is the amount of calories you burn in a day doing nothing. Okay, so the way I do this with my clients is I say, if you wake up tomorrow at 7 a.m., you open your eyes in bed and you don't move until 11 p.m., you close your eyes and go back to bed, the amount of calories that your body will burn just existing for a day, just laying there, not moving, not twitching a muscle. If it were possible, it's not, like not even blinking. Like, these are just the calories that your body burns, because like a car that's idling, it's still consuming energy. Okay. It is still, I should say, converting energy. Okay. So this is very important. Why? Because your REE, or your basal metabolic rate, or your resting metabolic rate, is the majority of the calories you burn in a day. And without doubt, most of the people that are most of my clients are actually shocked to learn how many calories their body burns on average doing nothing in a day. And by the way, as soon as you get out of bed, it goes up. As soon as you walk down the hall, it's going up. As soon as you open the fridge, it's going up. As soon as you eat something, it's going up. As soon as you exercise or go to work or get in the car, pick something up, or help your kids get ready in the morning, your calories only go up. Your RMR, or your REE, is a foundation. And that foundation on average is 70%, 70, not 17, not 17, 70% of your calories burned in a day are simply from existing. Okay. And then if you're curious where the others come from, about 15% comes from what's known as NEAT, NEAT. non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So the next largest chunk is 15% of your calories are burned doing things that are not exercise, just moving, blinking, talking, walking down the hall, right, etc. Okay, just normal movement throughout the day is another 15% of the calories burned. After that, 10% of your calories burned is from digesting food. It's what's known as TEF, the thermic effect of food. Okay, so 10% of your calories burned in a day are from eating food and digesting and converting that energy. And then about 5%, the remaining 5% is from exercise or EAT, exercise activity thermogenesis. Isn't it wild to know that your body on average burns twice as many calories digesting food as it does working out? Isn't that kind of encouraging? I know why it's frustrating, because people over-index on exercise and want to lose weight. But when that only accounts for 5% of your caloric burn per day on average, you can see why focusing on that 5% isn't necessarily going to yield the greatest results. Anyways, back to REE. This is good news, because what this means is what the study was looking at was that there was no significant difference, maybe to the tune between the highest level and the lowest level of about 100 calories. And that was specifically related to REE, or resting energy expenditure. Okay, so you may very well have a lower resting energy expenditure than if you did not have an underactive thyroid, but take heart, it's maybe about 100 calories at most. Okay, so that said, I hope that made sense. And so with that, okay, how do I lose weight then? What does all this mean? I understand what thyroid is. I understand what underactive thyroid is, Mark. I understand more than you because I'm dealing with it. Okay, I get it. There's 100-calorie difference. But what do I actually do? So here's the good news. The good news is that the way you lose weight with an underactive thyroid is the same way that anyone else technically loses weight. It doesn't mean there isn't increased frustration, doesn't mean there isn't other considerations. Let's talk about fatigue. It does not mean that that fatigue you feel is not real. It is. However, it can be overcome. Okay. And by the way, fatigue in and of itself, being tired in and of itself, yes, it can slow your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Maybe you don't move as much. It can slow your exercise, but I'm here to say it can be overcome. Okay, so don't feel bad about being fatigued. Continue to rest and nourish your body and exercise when you can. Just know that perhaps you're not up against the mountain that you thought you were, though your circumstances are different. So let's talk about what that could look like. So how do you lose weight with an underactive thyroid? Number one, you have to, not because I said so, you have to establish what's known as a negative energy balance. This is not a way to lose weight. This is the only way the body loses weight. If any diet with a name, which I don't recommend, any diet with a name has, quote, caused weight loss, it was because it was able to help someone establish a negative energy balance. It was the mode, it was not the mechanism. Okay. So keto doesn't cause weight loss unless someone doing keto establishes a negative energy balance. And what that means is that you're consuming fewer calories than you're burning on average over time. Or stated another way, but saying the exact same thing, if you burn more calories than you consume on average over time, right? So let's say you know for a fact that you've consumed 2,000 calories that day, but you burn 2,500 calories, your body will lose weight on average over time in that, because that is known as a calorie deficit or an energy deficit. Now, there's lots of nuance about how we understand those numbers. We'll talk a little bit about that, but just suffice it to say, you must, not because I said so, not because I'm trying to be czar of your life, but because this is in practice, this is the first law of thermodynamics. It's not a theory. It's not a diet. It's not a hunch. It's not even my experience. This is law. It is built into creation. It's built into our bodies. It's built into our existence. And so the only way that the human body loses weight over time is by consuming fewer calories than it burns on average over time. Okay, so how do you understand what this number is? I'm going to give you a step-by-step. Okay, so write it down, take notes. If you're driving, press pause, pull over, do whatever you need to do. But I'm going to give you a very step-by-step, very practical way to understand this. Okay, so in order to establish a negative energy balance, okay, Mark, well, what does that mean? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to a website. It's called tdeecalculator.net. Okay, that's the URL. TD Tango Delta Echo Echo calculator.net. Okay, you're going to see a form there. I want you to enter your information: male, female, current body weight in pounds, height, activity level, your age, your activity level. I want you to be conservative with your activity level. Okay, so if you're like, oh, I work out a good amount, go with the lower end of that on average so that this is sustainable and reasonable as a calculation. And this is just a starting place. Okay. It's not going to be an exact number. It can't be. No method could exactly know your TDEE. And by the way, that stands for total daily energy expenditure. Okay. So enter your information, punch through, and don't worry about your body fat percentage on there unless you've recently had it tested and that's an optional field. You don't have to put that in there. Again, be conservative on your activity level. I technically work out usually at least 5-6 days a week, but I still run my numbers as if I work out 3 to 5 times a week. Okay, just as an example. All right. So here's what you're going to do. Put in that information, click calculate, and then I want you to write down in your phone, piece of paper somewhere. I want you to write down 2 numbers on that page. There's a lot of information on that next page after you hit calculate. I only want you to write down 2 things. We're only going to focus on 2 things. Number 1, at the top, it should say your maintenance calories. Write that number down. Okay, your maintenance calories. That is the estimated amount of calories that you need to consume to stay at your current body weight. Okay. Now you have a weight loss goal, so we'll talk about what that means. However, that is the amount of calories that we estimate you would need to consume to stay at your current body weight. Okay. The other number I want you to write down is where it says basal metabolic rate. That is back to our REE or RMR, our basal metabolic rate. I want you to write that number down. That is the amount of calories that we are estimating you burn every day just existing. Again, if you woke up at 7, didn't move, went back to bed at 11, that's the amount of calories we are estimating you would burn in a day. Okay. Here's the summation. I recommend, well, 1, you have to consume fewer calories than you burn. So you have an idea of what that number might be in your maintenance calories. In general, here's what I recommend. I recommend, of course, consuming fewer calories than your maintenance calories, but more calories than your basal metabolic rate. I am not interested in underfeeding your body or unintentionally too quickly causing metabolic downregulation. So what I recommend is eating less than your maintenance calories, but more than your basal metabolic rate. Okay. An easy place to start would be subtracting 250 calories from your maintenance calories. That's an easy place to start. Okay. So long as that number is not lower than your basal metabolic rate. If you wanted to be a little more aggressive, you could subtract 500 calories from your maintenance calories, provided that number is not lower than your basal metabolic rate. Okay. I do not want you eating less than your basal metabolic rate and causing unnecessary rapid metabolic downregulation. Okay. So somewhere below your maintenance calories, but above your basal metabolic rate is a starting place to understand the amount of calories you need to consume to establish the negative energy balance. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay. Now, if you have been clinically diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and perhaps you have on the low end, you have a very low thyroid, or very underactive thyroid, you may be able to subtract 100 calories from your basal metabolic rate. Okay. So if it says your basal metabolic rate is 1500, but you have clinically been diagnosed with a very underactive thyroid, you might be able to reasonably assume it's more like 1400 based off this study. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So you may be able to bring that down. I would not start there. I would start with best case scenario, which is simply subtracting 250 or maybe 500 tops, depending on where that number is, so long as it's higher than your basal metabolic rate. I wouldn't worry too much about adjusting that 100. But in theory, you could based off the data. Okay. Then here's what I want you to do. So that's your new number. Again, it's lower than your maintenance calories, but it's higher than your basal metabolic rate. So here's what I recommend. And it requires a little bit of work because most things in life that are worth it require a little bit of work, right? So here's what I would want you to do. I would want you to spend 2 or 3 weeks doing this. Just 2 or 3 weeks. You can do anything for 2 or 3 weeks. Okay. 2 or 3 weeks. I want you to track everything you eat and drink that has calories. Everything. To the absolute best of your ability using a free app. It's 2024 at the time of this recording. It has never been easier to understand the calories that we put into our body. Restaurants are putting calories on the actual menu. We have apps now where you can just scan food labels. You can create a recipe in these apps with all the ingredients and then set your serving size. So you make a chili with 10 ingredients in a huge pot, put all of that into a recipe and then in the app, and then just tell the app, okay, all of that, I'm going to do 1 cup from that. It will run the numbers for you. It's incredible. It'll never be exact. It doesn't need to be. It needs to be really close. It'll never be exact. Even when I track my calories, I'm not 100% accurate. By the way, the back of a nutrition label by FDA law or regulation has a 20% margin of error. Okay. So if it says it's 100 calories, it could be 120, it could be 80. So it'll never free yourself from this idea that you have to be perfect. Rather put yourself into a process where you're going to start getting pretty dang close to understanding the amount of calories that you consume every day. I want you to track everything you eat and drink that contains calories, everything, for 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. A couple apps real quick. Most of my clients like MyFitnessPal. There's an app called Lose It that I use. I hate the name, but I love the app. By the way, I'm on the payroll of none of these apps. I'm not getting paid to say this. I know other people experience great results with Chronometer. And so that's just 3. Find a free app. Don't pay for the upgrades. Don't pay for the premium or anything like that. You just need something that tracks your calories. Okay. And then track everything you eat and drink that contains calories for 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. If you can commit to that, I guarantee you will enter an educational environment that will have some incredible learnings about the foods you prefer, how they make you feel, how they fill you up, how fast you can get to your daily calories. And so you're going to have a lot of learnings in those 2 to 3 weeks. You're going to understand food differently, portions differently. Like, wow, that's a healthy food, but it's got a lot of calories. And this one is not so healthy. It also has a lot of calories. Interesting. So if I'm going to use up my calories, right, here and there, you're going to go back and forth. You're going to learn a lot of really cool things. Okay. So track everything you eat with calories for 2 to 3 weeks. I also want you to track. So it's the second tool I want to give you. I want you to track your average body weight. Okay. So in his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear says, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. It's a quote that I've been fascinating on recently. And so we don't rise to the level of our goals, myself included. We fall to the level of our systems. So these are the 2 systems I want to give you. 1, you're going to track your intake. 2, we're going to track essentially your expenditure by tracking your average body weight. So let's talk about how to do this. All you need is a spreadsheet, or just email me. I'll send you the one I use with my clients. Honestly, I just want you to use them. I don't care. Okay. I don't care that I created a spreadsheet for my clients and that's what we use when they pay me. I don't care. I want to give this to you. Okay. Just email me. I'll send you the spreadsheet. Here's what you do. You simply track your body weight every day at the same time. I recommend first thing in the morning, naked, or at least in the exact same outfit, after you go to the bathroom, before you eat anything. Every morning, step on the scale, log your weight to 1 decimal point. So like this morning, I was 171.8. Write that down, 0.8, because you want to see progress inside of a pound. Okay. Track your body weight every day. And by the way, if you've got a little bit of hesitation about getting on that scale, that is an inanimate object that gives you 1 number. It does not signify your dignity, value, or worth. Stand on that thing, demand a metric, tell it to piss off, and you'll see it tomorrow morning. It does not command your life. It should not command your emotions. It should not be the start or the stop of an emotional roller coaster. Okay. What it should be is a single metric that we can use to understand one thing about our body. Okay. In no way gives the full picture, but it can be useful. And if you have a weight loss goal, it's okay to use your weight to understand if you're making progress toward that goal. Okay. So track your average body weight. So the way you do this in a spreadsheet, very simple. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you track your exact weight to 1 decimal point, and then you just run an average of the 7 days. Here's the thing. Your body weight will go up and down. It goes up and down throughout every day. It goes up and down throughout the week. We're not interested in the ups and downs. We're interested in the average week over week. So take 2 or 3 weeks and track your average body weight. So you may see that your body's going to fluctuate 2, 3, 4 pounds in a week. You need to understand what your average is, and then you need to compare week 1 over week 2 over week 3 over week 4, etc. And if your average body weight is going down week over week, not your daily weight, your average body weight, 7 days of data over 7 days of data over 7 days of data as an average. If your average body weight is going down week over week, you have established a negative energy balance. If it is not, you have not established a negative energy balance. Okay. This is your body's data telling you whether or not, it's not Mark, it's your body's data telling you that you are either in a negative energy balance or you are not. There is no better method that is easily accessible, easy to understand, immediately available, and free for you to know for sure if you are currently eating in a negative energy balance. Okay. From there, you can adjust. Let's say your average body weight has stayed the same. You are diligently tracking your intake. You are, to the best of your ability, tracking everything you eat that contains a calorie week over week, and your average body weight is roughly the same. You are in a neutral energy balance. You need to then slowly bring your calories down, maybe another 100 or 200 calories, or you need to slowly move your activity up. Maybe you need to go on a little extra walk a couple days a week, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about activity here in a second. Okay. But long story short, those are the two systems. If you understand your intake and essentially your expenditure, it's sort of like finances. You got to understand your income, you got to understand your expenses in order to get your money in line. So if you want to get a hold and be in the driver's seat of your weight, track everything you eat for a couple weeks, track your average body weight for a couple weeks, and then you can start to make rational, calm, sustainable decisions. Okay. I hope that's been helpful. All right. So that's number one. You have to establish a negative energy balance. I'm going to spend the most time on that one. So we got through it because that's the most important, because that is the only thing required to lose weight. If you do nothing else, if you establish a negative energy balance, you will lose weight. Okay. Now, here are a few things that are helpful and beneficial to do in this process as well. I want you to consume 25 to 30% of your daily calories from protein. Okay. So 25 to 30% of whatever that number is that you got in the first step, I need you to understand that research says about 25 to 30% of those calories coming from protein is ideal for weight loss. Okay. And I've got like 8 studies I could point you to over the course of a few decades that have said that's about the range you want to be eating. So you want 25 to 30% of your calories coming from protein. Okay. So yes, in the same app, you can track your protein and understand what 25 to 30% of those calories are from protein. Okay. And by the way, there are 4 calories per gram of protein. So if you understand your calories in protein, right? So if you're consuming, let's say 400 calories from protein, divide it by 4, that equals 100 grams. Okay. So if you're trying to convert calories to grams or grams to calories, right? If you have 400 calories from protein, divide it by 4. Or if you're saying, hey, I'm trying to understand how many calories are in 100 grams of protein, I'm going to track to 100 grams of protein. Just take 100 times 4 is 400 calories. Okay. Hope that makes sense. If not, reach out to me. I will help you for free. Please let me help. Okay. So consume 25 to 30% of your calories from protein. This is going to help keep you full. This is going to increase what's known as your thermic effect of food. Remember that we talked about that. That's about 10% of your calories burned. It's going to help induce some of the hunger signals in your body. It's going to increase satiation or feeling full. It's going to decrease ghrelin, which is what signals that you want to eat. So protein, for many reasons, is amply important. Very practically, it also helps you retain muscle, which keeps your metabolic rate high, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on and on. All that's to say, that's like only 4 of the 87 reasons why optimizing your protein is going to be helpful. So that's number 2. Consume 25 to 30% of your daily calories from protein after you've established that negative energy balance. Number 3, consume ample amounts of fiber. Okay, you're going to get these from fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts and seeds. If you are a male, 50 or younger, you want to target about 31 to 34 grams daily minimum. You can go above it. It's not going to hurt. Okay. Men age 51 and older, you want 28 grams daily or more. Women age 50 and younger, you want 25 to 28 grams daily or more. Okay. And then women age 51 and older, you want 22 grams daily or more. And by the way, ramp up your fiber slowly. It'll just minimize some of the discomfort. Discomfort as you increase fiber is totally normal. Let's say you're going from, and by the way, 95% of Americans don't get that amount of protein that I just referenced, or fiber. Okay. 95% of Americans do not get the recommended amount. So if you think you're in the 5% that do, you probably don't. And I would ask you to prove it by tracking it. Because even before I started tracking fiber, I was not naturally hitting accidentally on my own, just happened to be hitting optimal fiber every day. It does take focus like protein. And so just ramp it up slowly. A little discomfort is fine. If you're going from 10 grams to 20 and you're kind of uncomfortable, bring it down to 15, right? And just slowly allow your body to acclimate. All right. So that's number 3. So after we've established a negative energy balance, we're consuming 25 to 30% of our calories from protein. We're consuming an ample amount of fiber. Again, that comes from fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts and seeds. And then number 4, strength train. Okay, this is going to stretch some of you because maybe you've told yourself a story for the last couple decades that you're not a gym person. Okay, you don't want to lift weights, whether it's at home, whether it's at a gym, with a trainer, with a friend, by yourself. I highly, 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 highly recommend that you strength train at least 2 to 3 times per week. 2 to 3 times per week is an incredible foundation to challenge your body in strength. You want to make sure that you are getting stronger. There's a few ways to do this. I'll just talk about 2. Number 1, if you want to do it on your own, I lift by myself. I use an app, also not on their payroll. Wish I was. If someone from Fitbod is listening to this, reach out to me. Would love to work with y'all. But I love and use and have used for almost 7 years now the Fitbod app. It is an AI-based app that learns my goals, it learns my strength thresholds, and it programs my workouts for me because I've set strength training as my goal. And then it builds my workouts for me. I can, of course, adjust anything I want. I can swap out exercises. I could change the reps. I could change the weight, right? Very flexible in that sense. But for me, a busy guy, I like to show up at the gym and have my workout planned for me and know that it was planned based off my goal to get stronger. Okay. So I highly, highly recommend that you strength train 2 to 3 times per week. You could use an app like Fitbod or another strength training app. Number 2, you could use a personal trainer. You could use a log. Here's my recommendation for working with a trainer. Walk in, say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm thinking about using your services. What's your cost? Go through the logistics. And if you do agree to work with someone, I would state to the trainer this: I want you to show me on paper that I'm getting stronger every week or every month. I want you to show me on paper in black and white, in numbers, that I am getting stronger. Prove to me that you are making me stronger. And if you don't do that, I'm going to fire you and I'm going to get a different trainer who will. Okay. A good trainer will melt at the opportunity that a customer just came in and said, be good at your job, as opposed to, I just need a therapist to talk to while I'm pretending to work out so I can tell myself that I'm not achieving goals, even though I have a personal trainer. This exists out there. Okay. I want you to walk in and say, hey, can't wait to work with you. You are going to be paid to make me stronger and prove that I am getting stronger. I will show up and put in the work if you will program my workouts accordingly. I want to get stronger in a safe way, sustainable way over time. And then let that personal trainer go to work to make sure that you are strength training. You're not just exercising. Those are different things. Okay. Those are different things. Strength training is not necessarily just exercising. Exercising is not necessarily strength training. Okay. So whether it's with an app, a log, a personal trainer, whatever it is, strength train 2 to 3 times per week. Okay. I understand if you're dealing with fatigue, that might seem like a lot. Sometimes having that personal trainer and that accountability is what you need to get you to the gym. Because a lot of times people say, well, I struggle with fatigue, and they have a home workout system and they struggle to work out because they lack the accountability. Okay. You'd be surprised what we can do when other people are depending on us or calling us up to something. And again, remember that we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. So put a system in place that says 2 to 3 times a week, I'm going to start working on getting stronger. Okay. Trust me, for a trillion reasons, it will go well with you. Okay. And then after strength training, get at least 150 minutes of cardiovascular activity per week. 150. Okay. So break that down however you want. Let me set a foundation at a minimum, a brisk walk. Right. So dice up what that would look like to get you to 150 minutes, whether you like to walk for 15 minutes a day, whether you like to walk for 30 minutes, whether you like to walk for an hour, and you just need to do that maybe 2.5 times per week, right? Whatever that is, at the very minimum, most people, it's highly accessible. Most people can go for a brisk walk where you slightly elevate your heart rate. I'm not saying you go for a stroll. I'm saying you go for a brisk walk and get your heart rate up. Okay. Some of that low intensity stuff. And then just if you like to jog, if you like to bike, if you like to play soccer, if you like to play Frisbee, if you like to, whatever it is. Okay. 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio per week. Okay. And then lastly, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. There's so many reasons. I said on social media recently, don't sleep on sleep. Sleep is so important. I could do a whole episode on, maybe I should. It can help fight cravings. It can help keep your metabolism high because you're dealing with a metabolic consideration. And keep in mind, again, if you're fatigued, sleep is good. It's not the enemy. Sleep is good. And when you're sleeping, you're not eating, by the way, right? Like sleep doesn't, I just smacked my microphone. I'm getting so animated. Sleep doesn't cause weight gain. It literally can't. You're not intaking energy. You're only burning energy when you're sleeping, right? So being fatigued all the time, yes, it might mean that you have less activity, but you still control what you consume. Okay. But getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep is incredibly important, incredibly powerful. If you need one simple strategy on getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, I've worked with many people on their sleep over the years. One tactic we've used is just said, okay, look, if you have a set time that either your body wakes up naturally or you have to be up because of work, life, all that sort of stuff, or some combination of both, that's fine. Chances are you might not be in charge necessarily. Well, you kind of are, but kind of aren't. Like if you have a set wake up time, you're definitely still in charge of your go to bed time. And what I've used as a strategy with clients over the years is just simply start by marking a bedtime. Let's say you have to get up at 4:00, right? I've had this happen, and people consistently get, to bed at like 11. I'm not going to say, all right, start going to bed at 9, right? Like right out the bat to start getting your 7 hours. What I'm going to do is say, hey, for week 1, instead of 11, let's go to bed at 10:45. Make it happen. Show me you can do that for a week. After that week, you guessed it. Why don't you show me you can do it at 10:30? Do that for a week. Then 10:15, then 10, then 9:45, right? We creep it back gradually, sustainably over time. Don't think if you got to wake up at 4, you've been going to bed at 11, you need to suddenly start going to bed at 8 or 9, and it's just going to work out for you tomorrow because you listen to a podcast. It's not. Gradual, sustainable changes over time, okay? So again, real quick, number 1, to lose weight with an underactive thyroid, you have to establish a negative energy balance. It's not optional. It's the only thing technically that's required. Okay. So do that, track your intake, track your expenditure for a couple weeks. adjust accordingly. Number 2, consume 25 to 30% of your calories from protein. Number 3, consume ample amounts of fiber. Number 4, strength train at least 2 to 3 times per week. Number 5, get at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio per week. And then number 6, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And even with an underactive thyroid, you can, hear me please, friend, you can lose weight. If I can help, please let me know. Of course, I am here. I hope this podcast changes way more lives than I ever even learn about. If I could be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can contact me at our website, Imago Nutrition, IMAGO, nutrition.com/contact. I would love to help or hear from you or hear success stories coming out of hearing this podcast or frustrations coming out of hearing this podcast or adjustments that I can help you make as you've gone through this process and are looking at the numbers and trying to understand what would work for you. And so please, if I could be a resource, let me help. There is hope. There is good news on this front. Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you would like to receive notifications, please subscribe to the podcast so that you can hear upcoming episodes. Drop us a review. Let us know how we're doing, and share this with a friend. Would love to help as many people as possible. That's why we do the free podcast. If you're on social media, you can follow us. We are at Imago Nutrition. That is at IMAGO Nutrition across all major social media platforms. And as always, would like to thank the band Happy Pill for our theme song, Think About Food, because on the Imago Nutrition podcast, we're always thinking about food. We'll see you next time, friend. Bye.